Coucou, bonjour, salut, et bienvenue à Learn French with Mr. K. C'est moi. Today, we're going to be focusing on indefinite articles, les articles indéfinis. And if you haven't already, go and check out my video on definite articles. And at the beginning, I give a bit of an introduction about what articles are generally in language and a lot more clarification. So today, focusing on indefinite articles in French, okay? So, an indefinite article is, what is it in English? What's an example in English? Good. We would say a or un if it was followed by a vowel, okay? We would say some if it was plural as well, okay? Now, in English, we can avoid using the article. For example, there are bananas in the cupboard, or there are elephants in the zoo, okay? But in French, the article is essential. We can never just drop it. And it's like an invisible sum that we would have in English, which we can say there are some elephants in the zoo, there are some bananas in the cupboard. And it slightly changes the emphasis in English, but this is about French rather than in English. So, the indefinite articles in French, we've only got 3 this time as opposed to 4 in the indefinite articles. Okay, so it's slightly less complex. So for masculine, if we use the same nouns that we used in the definite article video. So we have un livre, okay, for masculine nouns. For feminine, we would say une table, okay, a table. And for plural, we would say des enfants, for children, or some children. I made the liaison there between the S and the E of enfant, because it starts with the vowel des enfants. Okay, très bien. So we spoke in the previous video on definite articles about patterns, how to identify masculine and feminine nouns. Now, there were no hard and fast rules. There are some that are fairly concrete, hard and fast, but there are exceptions to nearly every rule in French, which makes things tricky. But like I said, we've only got 3 indefinite articles to remember. But check out my previous video to see all those patterns. For example, nouns ending in E are largely going to be feminine. Nouns ending in tion, T-I-O-N, are going to be largely feminine. And those ending in age we spoke about will nearly always be masculine. It's not the end of the world. Ce n'est pas la fin des haricots. So it's not the end of the world, it's not the end of the beans if you get the definite article wrong, if you use the incorrect one. Nearly all the time, you're going to communicate what you mean, and it's just a small grammatical error. So French people will still understand what you're saying. It's something that young French people learn when they are young, growing up. And for them, they would hear it and it would sound ever so slightly wrong. So don't feel self-conscious if you're corrected on these. It's just a learning process and it's about practice. So for plurals, let's look at some nouns that we have seen before, perhaps. Okay. So how would we turn the following nouns into plurals? For example, un livre, a book. How would we say books or some books? Très bien. So that would be des livres. Excellent. How would we say une table? One table, a table. How would we say tables or some tables? Très bien. Des tables, adding on that S on the end. How about une banane? Très bien, des bananes, okay? Seeing the pattern here? How about une fleur, a flower? Excellent, that would be des fleurs. Excellent. Une baguette. A baguette. That would be des baguettes. Excellent. And lastly, un garçon. A boy. How would we say some boys or boys? Des garçons. Excellent. Okay, so now I'm going to give you roughly 10 nouns, and I want you to see if you can identify if it's going to be un or une. Okay? Or perhaps des. Here we go. Chat. Good, that would be un chat. Pomme. Très bien, féminin with the E at the end. Une pomme. Livre with the S at the end. Yeah, good, easy. Des livres for books. Voiture. Good, plural again, that would be des voitures. Garçon. Excellent. Un garçon. Arbre. We've come across an exception here. That would be un arbre. Okay, despite it ending in E, it is feminine. Un arbre. Ami. Des amis for friends. Excellent. Question. Good. Une question. Remember the T-I-O-N being feminine. Une question. Excellent. Table. Ending in an E. No tricks here. Une table. Okay, so in summary, we have 3 indefinite articles in French. 2 singular and 1 plural. So all plural, you would say des, okay, for some, or boys, apples, bananas, people, okay? Masculine and feminine, just quickly pronounce that, practice that pronunciation. So for masculine, a bit harder, un, in the nose there, quite a nasal sound. Un garçon, un livre. And a much different mouth position for feminine, we would say une table, and une orange. Okay, and plural, we would say des tables. We pronounce the S, that's right, when followed by a noun, so des éléphants. Okay, excellent. Okay, that's all we've got time for today on Learn French with Mr. K. But until next time, au revoir, à plus tard, gros bisous, et à la prochaine. Ciao for now.